Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and today I have a very interesting guest for you. Joining me is Carol Morgan, who is the president of Denim Marketing. She's also an author. So her latest book is Social Media Marketing for Your Business, second edition, because things are changing so quickly in the social media world. So today we really wanted to talk about how builders can win at social media, which is a very timely topic. So welcome to the show, Carol. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
It is always nice to be on your show, Anya, and to have time to chat with you. So thanks for the invite.
Thank you. Likewise. So for those listeners who may not know who you are, let's give us a little spiel, a little introduction of who you are and what is it that you do.
Absolutely. So Carol Morgan, founder and president of Denim Marketing, and we are a content-focused agency working for home builders, developers, build for rent, all sorts of ancillary services for the industry. But we focus on social media, blogging, public relations, email marketing, really anything related to content and then strategy around that. And we also do advertising on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all those things as well.
So as we know, social media is constantly changing. It is one of those things that like you cannot take a nap, right? You cannot snooze and have the same strategy that you had before. So for the topic of the conversation today, we're saying, okay, beyond pretty posts. So let's start with the obvious. So why social media more than just pretty posts for home builders today?
The visuals are certainly incredibly important, and your posts do need to be pretty, but it's about visibility, credibility, and connection. So if your beautiful post doesn't support your sales goals or communicate your brand or drive engagement, then it's not really working for you. So think, beyond the pretty. Make it pretty, but think beyond that and think about, what does this post do for my business?
I love how you said it has to give you visibility, credibility, and generate connection. It is very tricky because a lot of businesses, when they post on social media, they have their hat on for, okay, this is my time, this is my message to get out to the audience, and this is what we're doing. But with visibility, credibility, and connection, especially connection, that is a part that a lot of people lack on social media, is that they're speaking at you, not necessarily with you. So do you have any tricks for us to specifically address the connection part of the equation? How can we drive more engagement with our social media?
Well, you have driven that point home perfectly, that they're not connecting. I think you just need to think about it as a conversation. So, asking questions, even if you're telling somebody about your new community, asking them a question: which model do you like better? Finding a way to pull them into it and give them a reason to connect and engage with you. And then if they do connect or engage, even if they just say how pretty, please go through and the fact that they've commented on your post. This isn't old school marketing where we just plaster a giant ad in the local Sunday paper. This is a two-way conversation, and I think sometimes it's really hard for us to remember that. And again, just engage with them.
Yes, people need to remember the social aspect of social
Right.
media. That's the whole point here, and hence the conversation. So I love social media marketing personally, especially the B2C aspect of social media, when you really have that opportunity as a business to connect to your customers. Do you find that most home builders now have embraced the idea that it's no longer optional to have social media? And if so, what's changed?
Yeah, that's a great question, Anya. And I think you bring up a good point. For B2B, some of social media is optional, right? On B2B, depending on who you're talking to, you might just be using LinkedIn, which is a little bit more like the old timey newspaper. You still want that engagement, but a lot of people will just scroll and read and maybe not even comment on LinkedIn. But on Facebook and Instagram, especially when you're talking to consumers, I think that builders have really engaged and really get it that they need to be there. But I don't know that they've really thought about the why they need to be there. And the why is that today's consumer shops a little differently than they did, say, 10 years ago. They're scrolling more than ever before. They're really doing their research. And social media might be their first touch point with your brand. It's not as linear as it used to be, the way people shop. So they could, in fact, find you on social before they ever even go to look at your website. So it's really important just to make sure that you have that very solid social media presence that tells them enough to keep you in the scroll and to keep you in the search. Because Anya, it's so easy to get eliminated now. You don't want to cause that friction or cause that bad experience when they get to that Facebook page and go, ew.
You're right. And I think now social media is really starting to evolve into, it's not just social media platform, but we see so many elements of that e-commerce coming into it with influencer marketing, shoppable posts. If you ask Gen Zs especially, how do they shop? How do they find stuff? It's not Google, it's TikTok. And even speaking of LinkedIn, LinkedIn is also starting to evolve, where lately that vertical video is starting to pop up more on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so speaking of video, like we know video has been a hot topic of conversation for a while now. It just works. So do you think that builders can get away without doing video now?
I think builders need more video than ever. And I know there's probably some out there cringing to hear me say that because it is labor intensive, especially if you're hiring somebody to come in and shoot for you. It doesn't have to be, though. Again, the public and your consumers, they expect a little bit different than they did in the past. So they don't necessarily want to see that polished corporate video. They're perfectly happy to see some video snippets taken from an iPhone showing them behind the scenes tours and the different things that go into building a house. So don't feel like you always have to put 100% polished, professional, spend a lot of money out there foot forward. You can intersperse some of that iPhone video shot by your own team, and it's perfectly acceptable. And I think that really helps people that just don't have the money or maybe don't have the time for that professional, top-notch video.
Yeah. And actually what I found is that typically the polished version doesn't work as well on social media anyway. Like you spend all this money and you the time crafting that perfect message, and then sometimes it just doesn't land on social media. Like you said, people want to see that authenticity. They want to see behind the scenes. Some of our best performing posts are not anything about what Anugo does, right? It's about what people are up to at Anugo. It's like pictures of people, and that's what people tend to gravitate towards. So can you talk to us a little bit more about what types of posts actually tend to resonate with audiences now, specifically on Instagram and Facebook? And then if you can talk a little bit about TikTok, I don't know how many builders you find that are embracing TikTok, and if you think that the right audience is even on TikTok.
That's a great question. And I think you've got us headed in the right direction, talking about those human interest stories, the people post. People love that human touch. So if you've got employees that are willing to have their photos taken, take their photo with that happy homeowner, take their photo of them working out on the job site, all of those are going to perform really well. And anything with a dog in it or a cat in it. Now, beyond that, model home tours, design inspiration, anything that can help them visualize living in that house. And that's part of the reason that having those lifestyle photos is so important. And maybe you can shoot the lifestyle photos with your team in them or some of your happy homeowners in them. And that way they aren't just boring stock photos that don't necessarily resonate with anyone. Don't forget floor plans, new launches. They like new. So new model, newest model. What's different about the model? Some new cool paint color you're using in the model. Remember all of that. And reels and short form video are outperforming static posts right now on both Instagram and Facebook, especially if they're done well, which is a great segue into your question, Anya, about TikTok. Now, TikTok is elevating the game for sure. So, if you're interested in being successful on TikTok, not only do you need somebody who's willing to get behind the camera and follow the person around, but you need somebody who's willing to be the face of your company on TikTok. Or maybe it could be multiple people. You could think about splitting it up. Maybe you have a superintendent who's happy to do it and can talk about behind the walls. Maybe you've got someone in land development, a realtor. Think about who can be the face or faces of your company. Because I know a lot of times business owners get hung up on having that one person as the face of the company, because what happens when they leave? We've all seen that before, like, right, Anya? They go their merry way, and now you've got these reels or TikTok videos that don't have that person in them anymore. But that's the hard part about TikTok, is you really have to have someone to champion it, or it's not going to do well. You can put marketing videos out there. You may have a hit every now and then, but people like to follow people on TikTok. So finding a way to combine that person with your brand seems to be successful. We've seen a few builders out there doing pretty well on TikTok. Have you seen many more coming to that platform lately, Anya, or what are you seeing?
I think people are starting to embrace TikTok more and more, even talking to my friends, and like I'm the oldest millennial there is. I still hear, especially younger millennials, that a lot of them are on TikTok. And honestly, I used to spend a lot more time on TikTok myself, probably 6 months ago, and I made a conscious decision to try to, just for my own personal mental health, to shift it a little bit. So
Uh-huh.
I'm not spending as much time on TikTok myself personally as I do on Instagram and Facebook. And again, just because TikTok is so good at narrowing down what it is that you're interested in, that it can take you into the rabbit hole of it, right? And next thing you're like 5 hours
Oh,
later
yeah.
looking at cabbage because you like one cabbage video. I don't know. It just
Yeah,
takes you into the whole thing. So I think,
so
yeah,
true.
but you also have to think about maybe they're not necessarily buyers now, but they're going to be buyers very soon. And like I said, I do think definitely millennials are on it. And I think
Oh,
even
yeah.
Gen Xers are also starting to get into TikTok. So whether you like it or not, I think you're going to have to find your way into it. And I love the suggestion that you made of not necessarily relying on one person to be the face of the company. But yeah, if you have several people who can be comfortable on camera and they rotate it, and it does give your brand more of a holistic look at it, right? It's not just one
Right.
person, but it's like from the perspective of multiple employees. I love that strategy. So it's definitely a really cool one. And then I think, yeah, face to face works on TikTok really well, but also just the beautiful shots of your model home. One of the
Hmm.
tricks that I have for that, and I'm curious, Carol, if you've started using AI at all, because we all have so many great pictures of our model home. We
Right.
we we have the photos, and now AI allows us to take that still photo and turn it into a video clip where, for example, one of the examples I showed was a shot of the kitchen, and then you ask AI, you prompt it, and there's different AI video editing available out there. And one of the prompts you can say is, can you turn this into a video by sliding a
Hmm.
camera angle slowly behind the countertop? That's all it is, or whatever it may be. And that's what it does. It turns that static image that's not very interesting, maybe,
Right.
into suddenly a video. And all you have to do is just go to TikTok, find some trending audio to go with it, and boom, you have a reel ready to go.
Right.
And what's interesting is that with reels lately, it was like there was a period of time where like a really short reels, like 3 to 5 second reels, were actually outperforming something that was maybe a little bit longer. So you can play around with that. And again, with AI tools, you do have an opportunity to really try different things. So I'm curious, have you started playing with any of that stuff? Do you have any
We
favorites?
we play with some of the AI tools. We haven't been using them for video. We typically still build video in Canva that will let you pan and do a lot of those things. So it's got some
Yeah.
AI-like features. I guess we need to play some more with it and see what else is out there. There may be things that are better than Canva, but yeah, I think whatever you can do to make it move and catch people's attention, because as you and I both know, everyone's got an attention span of a gnat, and if it's static, they're less likely to look at it or to be drawn into it than if it's moving.
100%. Yes. you're competing for the eyeballs, right? And everyone's
Yep.
just scroll. So you got to make it interesting. So if there's some kind of a movement,
Yep.
or even what I've heard lately that's working, even with static photos, you know how you can create the carousels now? So I
Yep.
think 10 photos or maybe even more on Instagram. If you add music to that, it will show up not just in the post, but it will also show up as a reel. And anytime you have a reel, which is basically a video, it
Right.
gives you a lot more exposure. It gives you a lot more eyeballs.
Yeah, we do a lot of the carousels because they also do really well as ads on Facebook. Experiment with a lot of those different things. And then the other little trick that we have is to use that trending audio. And you have to be, I want to say it's an entrepreneur. You should be classified on Instagram as an entrepreneur to use the trending audio. But it's easy to go in and change your category and then hide your category so nobody knows that you've changed yourself to an entrepreneur, because you can't use the trending audio unless you are, which is stupid, but whatever. I didn't make the rules. We just are trying to figure out ways to bend them. But the audio is amazing. You can have maybe not the most exciting photos, but if you've got that trending audio, more people will see it. So there's all sorts of little tips and tricks to get your posts seen more, whether they're reels or stories or posts or whatever you want to call them. We want all of them to be seen more and to be engaged with.
100%. I'm curious, Carol, how do you decide which posts to use as organic versus ad? Do you typically let it put something out there and see how it performs? And if it's doing great, you put dollar ads to it? Or is there a different mentality of how you design an ad versus an organic post?
Yeah, I think for our bigger builders, it's going to be which communities do they need the most focus on. So the organic post will tend to focus on all their communities, and we'll want to make sure we share the love with all of their communities and everything going on within that home building company. But then the paid post will really focus in on a specific community that maybe needs some love, or a specific community that's selling gangbusters. So that's how we look at those, especially if you're looking at web clicks. Now, if you're looking at just basic engagement and just promoting a post, then it may just depend on the budget. So a lot of our clients, probably most of what we put out there for them is going to get a $20 boost or a $25 boost. But what we do love about Facebook ads is that if you give it options, especially with those web click ads, if you design a couple of different ones, it will run them all until it figures out which one resonates best with your audience. And then it will move all the spend to that one ad, which is really fantastic because it's doing all the heavy lifting for us after we design them, of course. So that way we're not spending money that isn't working. We're really focusing those dollars on the images that are resonating with our audience. So we love that.
For sure. That's one area where AI is making it so much easier now for us as marketers.
Correct.
Because even a few years ago, we didn't have that, and you would have to monitor it constantly, and it is just a lot more difficult versus, yeah, you can find a winning ad right away. Hey, if it's resonating, put more money to it, let's spend
Right.
it.
Yeah, I love that.
So speaking of engagement, as you mentioned, and finding that winning ad, what else can you use to measure your ROI? Because with social media, is it about the eyeballs? Is it about what action they take? What are we looking for at the end of the day here? How do we measure success?
That is a great question, Anya. And as always, the answer is it depends on what's important to you as a home builder, right? I like to say that Google Analytics is your best friend. So we track website traffic and conversion from social platforms. So you can track that in a number of different ways. You can use UTM codes. You can, depending on what your CRM software is, you can track it through your CRM. We'll also set up Google events, so that an event might be somebody coming through from your Facebook page to a landing page that fills out a form, or somebody coming through from Instagram that has come through an ad who has clicked to call. So we like to measure all those events and really track things that are sales signals. But beyond that, we also track, are your followers going up or down? What does your engagement look like each month? What are the different actions that people are taking both on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera? And then how does that compare to your traffic? traffic. So we track it backwards and forwards, both from the analytics side as well as from the individual platforms. Or in our case, we use a tool called Plannable.io, which is similar to HubSpot or Sprout Social or Agorapulse. There's a lot of different tools out there, but all of those tools have tracking within them as well. So I would always recommend you look at your Google Analytics, you look at whatever your social media tool is, and then you also dive deeper into each individual site. And yes, it takes a lot of time, but every time you take the time to really dig through your analytics and tracking, you'll figure out things that work well, things that don't work as well, and it'll help you come up with a game plan for your next month or 2 months worth of content so that you're not just creating content that doesn't resonate. You're really creating content with purpose.
Yes, absolutely. And in the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that you guys are really content focused at your firm. So talk to me about why you think content is so important in the marketing world and as it relates to SEO and now AIO.
AI.
And
Okay.
also, content is time consuming, right? Like it's writing blogs. Obviously, now we have some AI that can help us with that, but typically it is very time consuming. So you can work on one piece of content for what could be a week. Is there ways that maybe we can reuse this content in multiple ways so that we're maximizing our exposure?
Lots of good questions in there. I'll see if I can answer them all. I feel like you know all the answers to these already, so we're just sharing with our audience what we think, huh? As it relates to why is content important for AI and SEO, just think about it. If you're going to ChatGPT or Gemini or Google or wherever you're going, you're asking it a question, right? When it renders that result to you, that result has to be somewhere on the internet. Otherwise, there will be no result. So if you think of that in terms of a home builder or a remodeler, if you want to be the result that returns when somebody asks their AI, hey, who are the top remodelers in Atlanta Metro or in some specific city or whatever that buying question is, if you don't have that content on your website or you haven't been listed in that list with your local publication that came out with that top 10 or top 20 list or whatever it is, you're not going to get rendered as a result. So it's actually made content even more important than it was just a few years ago, because now we've got to create content that answers questions that our buyers are asking Google as well as asking the chatbots. So content's become even more important, and it's got to be that original quality content. And I think there's still a lot of people out there who don't like to write content, even with the help of AI. Anya?
Hey, I'll take all the help I can get because I remember, yeah, back in the day, it would take me so long to write blogs. And now, at least you have an outline. It can help you come up with something. It can help you perfect your grammar. So it makes it easier, but
Right.
still, in order for you to create content that's quality, like you said, yes, it's worth investing time into it. I am a huge believer in content marketing. That's always been my driving strategy here at Inugo or elsewhere. It pays off. So definitely spend the time. Again, you have Carol right
Absolutely.
here who specializes in content marketing. So if you guys just can't wrap your head around, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this, outsource that. It is that important. Think about people searching AI for everything now, right? So many people are starting that route instead of Google. Even if it's Google, right, you still want to kill two birds with one stone. Content's going to make you discoverable on Google with SEO, but it's also going to make you discoverable on AI. And that is the direction where we're going to see more and more people shift to. Because again, it's easy, right? Who wants to click on 10 different links in Google where you can just go to AI, ask a question, and boom, there's my
You
answer.
get it. Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
So
yeah, and that's what your other part of that question was, how can, a builder take one piece of content and really repurpose it or get more out of it? If you think about a blog or a video, if you start with that as your cornerstone piece of content, then you can turn that blog into a LinkedIn article, a Facebook post, an Instagram carousel, an Instagram reel, even a story or a TikTok clip. And in all those instances, you're just using part of that blog post. So you're going to link back to your original source. So now you're using your blog to go out into the universe e-commerce and pull people back into your website, which is the push and pull of and syndication of a blog, which I've always loved. You can pull quotes out of that content or stats for graphics. One blog could be 5, 6, 7 social media posts. And if it's an evergreen post, it could be a blog that you reuse almost every single month across social if you take a slightly different angle with it. Taking that one piece of content and really finding ways to use it in multiple places and curating it for each of those places, because you certainly wouldn't put the same exact post on X that you would put on LinkedIn or Instagram. But it's a fantastic way to save time and really make sure that your most important messages get seen by a lot of people on different platforms.
Yeah, and it just makes your life so much easier as a marketer. That is the exact same approach I take here at Nugo. For example, this week it's our newsletter week. So, what kind of content am I going to put in this newsletter? Again, I don't have to reinvent it. I have a podcast, right? We
Mhm.
take a lot of our podcasts and we turn them into blog posts. And from those blog posts, I can write a script for a short video. And again, social media
Right.
posts. So, yeah, it just goes on and on. And again, as a marketer, we're always looking for information to include in our newsletters,
Right.
what is useful for your demographic, for your customers. So ask yourself those questions and then create content around that. And yeah, I love the idea of evergreen content because who wants to redo it over and over again if
Right.
it works. So one of the things you had mentioned is LinkedIn articles. So as a marketer, where would you decide to put your blogs? Is it mostly on your website? Is it LinkedIn? I know, one of the benefits of LinkedIn is it is owned by Microsoft, so it gives you more of a credibility boost. So I've been experimenting more with LinkedIn lately, writing articles to see if it makes our content more discoverable versus just putting it on our blog.
I love that. I can't wait to hear your results on that, Anya, because that's something I've wondered for a while. LinkedIn is probably my favorite site, and everybody's, what? But it's because you've already got a pre-qualified audience there. LinkedIn, you've got high net worth, you've got mostly college graduates, you've got professionals, i.e., you have qualified people who should have decent credit scores who can afford your homes, right? And with the frustration that we all cause on Facebook and Instagram, having to advertise to anyone who's 18 and above that's in our geographic area, LinkedIn helps to weed some of that out. So that's one of the reasons I love LinkedIn. But we've seen it starting to perform better and better over the last few years for our home builder clients. So when I look at a blog post, I'm still just recommending and posting a snippet of that blog on LinkedIn with a link to send them back to the website. Because my goal still for B2C is to get them on the website, somewhere that they can, complete a really easy contact form and we can get them in our CRM system. As opposed to B2B, I'm real interested in seeing what your findings are, Anya, with LinkedIn, because I think that LinkedIn is a little bit of a different B2B platform. It is to B2B what Facebook is to B2C, in my opinion. People go there to look for things there, not necessarily to leave. So I think it's a 50-50 on which will work better, your blog post or your LinkedIn newsletter or your LinkedIn article, but definitely a place that we all need to be because we're talking pre-qualified folks, and where, there's nowhere better to reach out to vendors and our cheerleaders in the industry and realtors and all those people that support the industry. And guess what? Their friends are consumers. So if you can get some of those folks to become your raving fans and start liking and commenting and sharing on your LinkedIn articles, then you're, again, reaching that highly qualified target market that's so hard to reach in other places without a lot of money.
Yes, I agree with you. And one of the biggest things about it is the discoverability, because again, you get that oomph of
Mhm.
Microsoft built into it, and they also own one of the AIs. So now it's feeding that. And yeah,
Right.
so I'm finding that a lot of our content is showing up, or like a lot of the searches that we would pay money for before, we're ranking just organically through that reach. So yeah, as
That's
a home
fantastic.
builder, it's definitely interesting to play around with what ratio goes on your website, what ratio
Mm.
goes, just because of that discoverability for sure. And I'm
Good.
curious because Pinterest has like similar
Yep.
effect to that, because it's actually one of the biggest search engines out there, and people don't necessarily think of Pinterest that way. But in B2C, do you find a lot of builders using Pinterest, and how do they typically do that?
A great question, Anya. So, Pinterest is an interesting site for a lot of reasons. It's absolutely where you end up when you're searching recipes or searching designs trends or searching homes. I don't believe that people go to Pinterest to buy homes. I think they go to Pinterest to decorate their current home or remodel their current home. Now, that being said, it's still a great place to start building some brand awareness because at some point they're probably going to purchase a new home. How we typically suggest home builders use Pinterest is don't necessarily make it your main focus. That still needs to be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But a couple of times a month, if you could go in, especially if you've got new model home photos, go in and upload those photos. Create boards that make sense is probably my number one Pinterest tip. I still go to home builders on Pinterest and cannot figure out what on earth they're actually building because they have so many kind of inspirational boards that have nothing to do with any of their homes. So build boards that make sense for your brand would be my number one goal for all builders in Pinterest because it's not doing you any good to repin all the different better homes and lifestyle type stories. It's just not. That's not going to send traffic to you. It's sending traffic to somebody else. So you're working really hard for somebody else. So pin your stuff that makes sense and maybe schedule when your photographer is shooting your new model homes, instead of just shooting big, giant, zoomed out room shots, zoom in on just pick an element from each house and say, this is the feature from this house. Maybe go ahead and give them the paint color. Because I can tell you the number one question you're going to get on Pinterest is what color is that paint? So you might as well put it in the caption and you'll eliminate a whole lot of back and forth. We do see Pinterest on occasion sending tremendous traffic to home builder websites, which is the other reason I love to hate Pinterest. It's great to get 3,000 traffic units a month for them, but it's not so great if they're 1 second a piece. So anyway, so just watch that because it really is more people looking to decorate and upgrade their homes. So we love it, but use it smartly. And if you are a remodeler, you've got great opportunities there. But if you're a builder, not so great.
So speaking of not so great, let's talk about some of the mistakes that you see builders make on social media.
Oh my goodness. Wow. We see so many little things, and I guess they're nitpicky, but I think that again, they can cause friction. So, probably my number one thing I still see that drives me crazy is posts that were designed for Instagram posting through to Facebook. So, you see these Instagram posts, and they're very obviously Instagram posted through to Facebook with 250, clearly I'm exaggerating, hashtags. Nobody wants to see all those hashtags on Facebook. And then there's no link. Or it says link in bio, and you're on Facebook, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm so confused. Oh, wait, you were too lazy to go through and to tweak this for the other sites. Again, it just causes friction for your buyers. Make sure that you're curating your post for each and every site and not just catering to your favorite site, which may be Instagram. So that's probably my number one complaint is just the lack of content being curated for each site. And then I guess my second thing that builders really need to do is take time and go through and look at their brand. Pull up your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and look at them. Actually look at them. Make sure the logos match. Make sure the colors match. Can't tell you how many times they don't. Make sure you've got your address on there and your phone number, and it's the right phone number and it's the right email address, not somebody that used to work there 2 years ago that doesn't now. And Facebook keeps changing things. So your your 2 sentences is what I think it is now. About description could be completely cut off. So just take the time to go through and look at the sites as if you don't work there and you haven't looked at them every day for the last year. Look at them with fresh eyes because things change. And you might find some things that you didn't even know that you could do, some new functionality like pinning posts to the top of LinkedIn. Or speaking of those pinned posts, make sure you check those too. Because if your last pinned post on Facebook was from 2022, then a lot of times people will go to that page, see that, and go, oh, they haven't updated it since then. They won't even scroll down. So if that post is that important, repost it in 2025 so that it doesn't, again, stop the scroll. You want them to keep scrolling till they hit something of yours and stop the scroll, then not for them to scroll past you. And I guess my third thing while I'm complaining is engagement. Again, these are not billboards. These are not radio ads. These are not print ads. You're trying to communicate with people. Please, if they have the courtesy of responding to you, interact with them. There's nothing worse than somebody asking a question or making a statement and they don't even get that little blue thumbs up. It's just snooze fest. It's the equivalent of somebody standing in the corner with you, talking to you at a cocktail party, and you just standing there deadpan. Not even, I mean, it's just really, it's just rude. Anya, talk back. That's why they're there.
Yes, talk back, definitely. That's where all the engagement is going to come from.
Yep.
Such great information and so many great pointers. Thank you so much, Carol. Now, if you guys want to learn more, you got to pick up Carol's latest book. Tell us where they can find a book.
Easy to find. It's on Amazon. So you can go to Amazon.com or you can go to builderbooks.com. It is published by the National Association of Home Builders, Builder Books, which is their publishing arm. So you can get it from them. And I'm pretty sure that it's at Barnes & Noble. I actually have not looked, but I think it's all the places you can buy books. If you find it somewhere unusual, let me know.
So exciting. I definitely happy I have my copy. So I will link that to Amazon, you guys, in the show notes so you can easily find it. And check out Carol's denim marketing. Tell us where they can find more information about denim marketing. If somebody wants to work with you, how do they connect with you guys?
Absolutely. We're really easy to find. We are Denim Marketing on all the socials, and you can find us at denimmarketing.com.
Perfect. I will link that as well. And do you hang out anywhere on, is it LinkedIn for you? If somebody wants to connect with you personally?
I would say I'm probably on LinkedIn more than anything else, just because most of the clients that I personally work on in the agency are B2B. So I'm on LinkedIn more than I'm on the other socials. So if you really want to reach me, that's probably the best place to do it. And then Facebook would be second. It's hard to avoid Meta.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Carol, thank you so very much for being on today's podcast. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you giving us some of the timely updates because, again, one thing we know for sure is that social media is constantly changing. And just when you think you got it figured out, nope. It's new algorithm, new things are happening, which actually, you know what? Speaking of LinkedIn algorithm, I noticed that they've changed something in the last 3 months. Things are, I don't know, not as much engagement happening. So we got to figure it out. Maybe it's the video we got to give them. We'll figure that out and we'll keep you guys posted on that. So Carol, is there anywhere you're traveling this summer that people can see you at any events or anything coming up for you?
Gosh, my next big event is the National Association of Real Estate Editors in June in New Orleans. So I don't know if anyone listening to this is going to that, but it's always a great conference, wonderful way to reach people who are covering our industry. And since we're always looking to find more coverage for our clients, that's where I will be this summer.
Amazing. Enjoy New Orleans, and we will talk to you very soon. See you next time.
Take
Bye.
care. Thank you.